All right, people, it is February 2023. We are 1/12 of the way through the year. We have had a rocky ride these last 6 months. In this first month of the year, I got to ask you, are you on track with your business? Are you on track to at least keep up with your business from 2021 to 2022? I'm not even talking about expanding. Now, there are 3 questions you're going to have to ask your business and get real clear on those answers for the rest of 2023 to win it. Now, before we dive in, I'm a permanent executive real estate coach in this space. If you'd like to book an exploratory call, there's a link to my calendar in the description. And as always, the first 2 calls are free. Here are my credentials. I've been a real estate coach for top producers for the last 6 years, and I've been in the business for 23. I went from 14 million in 2008 to 86 million in 2012. I'm going to hit you with a stat real quick. There were 38% less homes sold in November 2022 than November 2021. And while that number is going to come up a bit in 23, we are literally going to have 1 million less home sales in 23 than 22. That's 2 million less paychecks. I'm going to put that another way. I took the number of projected closings not happening in 2023, which is 2.4 million checks, right? 2 sides to a deal, divided by the total number of agents, 1.45 million. Now, if I reduce that down to just the number of agents, 600,000 that did at least 1 deal in 2022, that is 4 less closings per agent. What does this mean? This means that some businesses are going to go down. Some people are going to get out of the business. Actually, a lot of some people are going to get out of the business, and some people are going to grow their business. Are you prepared to grow? Or at the minimum, are you prepared to maintain the business that you have? First question, what were your top 3 sources of business in 2022? It's a simple question, but really go through each closing you had and research them. Typically, for most agents, SOI, sphere of influence, is number 1. And now number 2 and number 3 are all over the board based on the type of business that you're running. Prospecting versus marketing based. It could be expireds, FSBOs, open houses, could be door knocking, farming, any number of things. The rest of the one-off sources we're not going to focus on. I don't really care. Separate out those closings from the 3 and drill down on each one for the activities needed to achieve that closing. How many times did you call your sphere? How many emails did you send? How many texts to your sphere in total? Then take that total number of efforts and find out how many efforts per contact in your database there was for 2022. How many times did you reach out to them just to say hello and make them feel loved on? I bet it was not 36, and 36 is the number that it needs to be. Open houses. How many did you do to get to X number of closings? Expireds. How many dials, contacts, appointments, and listings taken to get to X number of closings? Whatever that activity was for just your top 3 sources, you're going to need to increase that by 50% immediately and eventually double. And here's what this looks like. If open houses accounted for 5 closings last year and you did 8 of them, you'll have to do 12 of them this year just to maintain that 5 minimum. For our non-expired agents out there, that sounds like a huge number, by the way, 5,000 dials. And it's actually dialing the phone only 100 times a week or 20 times a day. And that's not bad when you break a big goal into smaller goals on a daily or a weekly metric. If it's sphere of influence, you have to do 2 things. Increase the number of contacts in your database and increase the number of touches by 50%. If you got 20 closings from 200 contacts, you'll need 300 contacts in 2023. And that 10 contacts per person, that's not gonna cut it. It needs to move to 15 immediately. I'm not saying jump right to 36 touches right away. I'm saying grow that over time. Second question, 4 is the perfect number of lead sources for a balanced business, as they will perform differently at different times of the year. Example, I've always found open houses work better for me in the winter. And my theory is people would spend 3 times the amount of time in the home because of the cold weather, and it would allow me to better build a relationship. But honestly, I don't know why. I know my big open house closing months were February, March, and April, and I met those folks in October, November, December, January. Not sure why. My sphere closings usually dialed up in May, June, and July, and sometimes August. I work with a lot of move-up clients with kids, and the start of the school year is critical to them. So what lead generation sources are going to work in those gap times? It's really hard to tell until you dive in and do it a bit. And the better question is, what lead source will you commit to adding to make a 4th leg of your business? If you're doing less than 25 closings per year, I advise going with something more effort-based, less marketing dollar-based. Here in Michigan, 25 closings a year is about $180K in realtor income pre-tax, pre-expense, and pre-brokerage fees. So it's really about $100K a year. Taking on a super farm at $5K in marketing per month is not where I would go. Maybe I would do expireds. It's time intensive, and I found that getting really good at that lead source also forces you to sharpen your skills in all the sources because it's super competitive. Last question I have is, what are you doing that you shouldn't be doing? We have 2 jobs. Business procurement and business fulfillment. That's it. There's a lot of other stuff that goes along the way with it, but a lot of it we really need to not be doing. And here's what I mean. I broke down before I got my first assistant all of the things I did in a 2-week period, and I found that I ran my business much like most agents. About 20% of my day was in sourcing new business, 40% of my day was in servicing my existing business, And 40% of my day was doing detail work like turning in files and contacting and contracting photographers and ordering signs and ordering title. And I immediately saw the flaw. Each deal required about 25 hours of busy work. A title order only takes a minute. Ordering an inspection only takes a minute. Photos only take a minute. But I got really honest with myself about it. I used a stopwatch on my phone and I found that 25 hours was the actual number. Really it was 18, but because I didn't like the work, the busy work, it took a lot longer than it should have. And frankly, I'm just a slow human. So that year I closed 46 properties. At 18 hours per property, that's 828 hours or 20 weeks per year. Now, what was I even doing? I was going mad. Now, to do that, I was only spending 9 weeks-ish per year on the things that actually brought in income, sourcing new business, lead generating. At first, I didn't want to commit to an assistant, but didn't have a lot of options back then. I bit the bullet and I hired. The next year, I went from 46 closings to 88 closings, and the year following to 182. In today's world, you've got a ton of options to outsource. You can get an assistant full-time or part-time. You can get a virtual assistant full-time or part-time, or go with contract work like a contract closer on a per closing basis. Most are between $250 and $350 per closing. Now, frankly, I'd work in reverse through these options. I would start per closing because if there's no closing, there's no fee. Then I would get a virtual assistant part-time, then full-time, and then hire somebody stateside to work full-time as an assistant. I'm actually going to do a video on that as well, so don't forget to subscribe for when I drop that one. Last point I'm going to put out there is I'm very optimistic for my clients and my team in 2023. Typically, times of turbulence create the greatest opportunity. Most people freeze and they don't go into action, or at least don't know what the next right action is for their business. So next step is let's get a call going and see if we're a great fit. No sales pressure. My proof is in the pudding. I'm not going to ask to coach you. I'm just going to coach you. And if you find value in that, then we can talk about next steps when you're ready. Until then, make it a great day. Don't forget to subscribe, and we're going to drop a new video next week.